Welcome again to the DARE UK Real World Research Exemplar program. We have had an applicant webinar followed by a collaboration cafe. So this will just be a very quick debrief, just highlighting what's in the call. But really, it's just an opportunity. We are now 10 working days away from the due date. So this is just really opportunity for people who've been working on the application to come in with some questions. And so majority of the time will be at the very end for everyone to ask any follow-up questions, any last minute questions for their application. So just a quick housekeeping. As I'm going through the slides, I cannot see you, so just be aware of that. But I have colleagues who are also monitoring the chat. So please mute for these next few slides. And then when I stop sharing slides, feel free to raise your hand, submit your questions as I'm going through the slides. And the usual housekeeping, please remain respectful, video off, and be aware that this webinar is being recorded. And as I mentioned, the slides and the video will be shared on our site. So very quickly, what are we looking for? In the applicant webinar, I really went in depth about this funding opportunity. And I really, for this one, I just want to kind of drill it down to these 3 points. What we are essentially looking for is for researchers to demonstrate TREs in action. This is why it's essential to have a partner with a TRE, one TRE or more. And then the other big point here is that we want to see in the application, testing, refining, evaluating capabilities that have been developed under the Travolution program. So at this point, if I've received questions in the past month of, what is a TRE? And if you're not familiar with the TRE space, this will be a very difficult application to put forward. We are really trying to, the initiative is really about experimenting with secure research environments in practice. And there are researchers who are active in this space, so if you're not familiar with this space, it will be very difficult to put an application, a competitive application in. The other point is that, when I say here, prove value for researchers, this is for researchers to really have a chance to help shape this this environment of sensitive data work in the UK. So again, it's about broadening your own visibility as a researcher and connection with networks and collaboration and so on. So I would say these are the 3 big points of the funding opportunity and what we are looking for. Now, in terms of what organizations are eligible, as the lead, you have to be based at an eligible UK research organization. And at this point, I hope that you have started your the process on the UKRI site to see if you are indeed listed under the UKRI eligible organizations, because I believe if you are not listed there, your organization is not listed there, you would have to email them, and it takes around 10 working days to get listed. So I'm hoping everyone has already checked this. There is 1 project lead per person, but of course there's multiple co-leads allowed. You can lead or partner up on multiple applications. So you could be a co-lead on another application. But again, the point I want to really drill here is that one of your partners must be a TRE. And if a TRE is a UKRI eligible organization, they can join as a co-lead. If they are a TRE, for example, based somewhere, they are not an eligible organization, they're based overseas, they can join as a subcontractor. The other point that's really key here is, that you're showcasing that you are actively engaged in this space, so you're bringing in relevant expertise. I've received questions about, I don't have a lot of experience, like, for example, a research fellow saying that, they're not, but they might not have a doctorate or so on. It doesn't matter. What matters is your experience in this space is relevant. That's one of the things that the panelists will be looking at. And then again, that you're capable of leading or contributing to this kind of cross-domain research using Trevolution capabilities. And so a bit more about international organizations, because I've received a few questions. International organizations are not eligible as leads, again, because they are not UKRI eligible. But they are international researchers may be join as co-leads. You have to kind of justify the value of them. Why are you bringing them in when they're based overseas? The other, non-approved UKRI groups or again, international groups may join as project partners. And then another thing is that your core team members cannot be project partners. So again, like, for example, if you're under the same employer organization, like, you have someone from another department, they cannot be a project partner. They would just be, they would have to just be part of your team. And then internal collaborators, so again, like they would be a co-lead or specialist, not a partner, is what the point I'm trying to make. And then so just a bit more details about the funding opportunity. Up to close to 600K, that's the number there. But the MRC, UKRI will fund 80% of that. So that figure comes up to 475 K. And the duration is 12 months. Starts April 1st until the following year. Again, we recognize that this is it's a very short time period, and this is one of the reasons, when you're submitting your application, to really make the case of that you're able to do this within this 12-month period. And finally, again, this was, I went in depth, and we had a public contributor that really spoke about this in length during the applicant webinar. So if you hadn't had a chance to see watch that or didn't attend it, I really encourage you to go back and look at it. But this is really just a snapshot of the importance of public involvement and engagement, PIE. It's embedded through all our projects at DARE UK, and the panelists are not going to just be panelists in the TRE space, in the sensitive data space. We will also have panelists who are public members and will be looking for your PIE approach. So again, when you're on the UKRI site, there is an approach section, and this is where essentially you're really writing up the project plan and where you will be scored on your PIE. Under the cost and resources and cost justification, again, this is where we expect to see a costing of PIE activities. How are you going to engage the PIE members, public members, and so on. There is we suggest embedding the PEDRI good practice standards for PIE, or there's also the UK standards for public involvement. These slides will be shared, and you can go through any of these processes. And again, we're really looking forward to see evidence of members of the public being involved in your project delivery during these 12 months. And then finally, I just wanted to highlight the assessment areas. When you're on the UKRI application process, it's very lengthy, and there are a lot of pieces that you have to write up on, and these are the assessment areas that for each section you will have a word limit and so on. But I wanted to, again, because it's kind of buried in there, highlight that what you will be really scored on, the vision, the approach to the project. This will include if your project involves a statistical design and data management. This is all under the approach umbrella. And the PIE, even though there isn't a specific section under PIE, we expect you to be writing that up in this section. Your team, your project team, their capability to deliver this project. There's a whole section on TRE engagement. Again, what is the TRE, and how are you engaging them? How are you bringing them into the project? There's a section on ethics. There's resources that you're requesting, project partners, and the facilities and the trusted research and innovation is just kind of like it's very short. It's basically a pass and fail. So making sure you do that part as well. And this is all under application questions under the heading of like how to apply in the application. So finally, what is next? So as I mentioned, 10 working days, this application is due. I have received a lot of questions of like, what do you think of this, this application? It will not be assessed by me. If you are successful, you will work very closely with me, but it is that all the applications will be assessed by an independent expert panel. They are specialists in TREs in the sensitive data research space and in public involvement and engagement. And then after the assessment, there will be a shortlisting process, and the shortlisted applications will then be invited to a panel interview. And these panel interviews will take place on the 15th and 16th of January of next year. And during that process, we expect you to really give an overview of your project, and you will participate in a Q&A with the panel. So, as I mentioned, short and sweet. Here's some useful emails. Any questions that you may have after this call, again, please feel free to email UKRI. That's the MRC, informatics@mrc.ukri.org. And again, I'm here to also assist. That's my email. Feel free to reach out. And finally, we have the stay in touch if you would like to learn more. And let me stop sharing my screen here so I could see everyone We have, and this is the part where I open it up and like to hear if anybody has any last minute questions regarding their application. And I have first, I see Shujun Lee.
Okay, so thanks for the final, briefing of the whole call. So a quick question. I think everyone probably will be interested. So I just looked at the call again. I saw the call was updated on 29th of September. And the last webinar's slides and question answers haven't been added. I don't know if I missed anything.
The applicant webinars have not, you cannot see them.
Yeah, I can't see it on the website actually. So on the webpage, because usually it's in the additional info section. The additional info section, as far as I can see, they still have. Let me see if this is because of a cache issue. It still talks about webinars will be when we hold the webinar on 30th of September, and this is registration link of the webinar, and then at the very bottom the update says this is the day before the webinar, the page was updated. I wonder if the web page was.
Let me, so maybe, okay, let me share that link right now. Oh, and actually Michelle just beat me to it. Yeah. So it's in the chat. We apologize if that wasn't clear. It's on the Dare UK website.
Oh, okay, it's on that web page. So is it possible
Yes.
to add that on the UKR page, just so that if some people look at the UKR page, so that they will not miss it? Because I think not everyone is following that one. Okay. So I have a few other ad hoc questions. So the call actually says one or more TREs as a partner. So I just want to get clarification on what this means. Because there are three capabilities the call would like proposal to cover, data federation, analytics federation, and the last was some automated checks and disclosure thing. I wonder if this federation, it will have to have two or more TREs, right? Because usually it doesn't work with one. So it's one TRE is more about the third capability. Is that correct? Just so that I understand.
I would say at least one. It doesn't have to be two or three. We're expecting just at least one.
Yeah, well, what I'm trying to say is for federation, the nature of a federation means that there must be two. So one usually does not work. But okay, so I think if this is actually about eventually down to the nature of the projects, so
let me defer to Rob. He can explain it. Yeah.
Thanks, Danska. Thanks for your question, Shujun. Yes, and if it's one of the federation capabilities that you're seeking to kick the tires of, then you'll need two TREs in the mix, because federation is fundamentally about connecting more than one. There are other capabilities in the Treevolution program that would only require one TRE, looking at evaluation against the SARTRA specification, the Cater implementation of a pop-up TRE, if you like, the disclosure control that SACRO and SACRO-NL are looking at. But in terms of the federation, yes, you kind of need two in the mix there.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's my understanding. I just want to get a double confirmation, because we have been working on it based on this understanding, just to make sure we are not getting it wrong. Something related to this is if a proposal has a bit more narrow focus, let's say if they decided to work with one TRE on a capability which matters, only for one TRE can prove it. And also if they choose to only focusing on one of the three areas of capabilities, will they be somehow see as less preferable compared with others, involving more TREs, more capabilities, because the code says one or more, for both, just to get. So better the idea would be it's something more focused, even if they are just one TRE, one capability is also welcome equally, or you actually prefer one project cover more TREs and more capabilities?
I wouldn't say there's a preference.
I could comment that I think it will depend on the how compelling your case is, how compelling a story can you tell around the focus that you've got. It's not for us to evaluate this. Will be an independent panel, as Nash says. But if you can tell a compelling story, great. That's what you should be aiming to do.
Okay, that is clear. Another one is of very similar nature. Is in the examples you give in the course, there were a number of project and techniques explicitly mentioned, like SATAR and SACO and KA TRE. Just want to get some understanding of these are merely examples. They are not particularly, things like more important than others.
Yeah, they were just simply examples. We're not giving any sort of preference over Trevolution capabilities and so on.
Okay, that's good, because for instance, SACO, and I think SACO will appear twice and SATAR probably appears 3 times. So it feels like they are more highlighted. Okay, but we probably will use them anyway, but just to clarify. Another question I have, sorry for having so many questions. So another question about the PIE lead. So we are currently considering having potentially 2 PIE leads, because we may look at multiple health conditions. So it sometimes may be useful to have one, for instance, co-lead focusing on one condition, the other focusing on the other condition. We haven't fully decided because we are still in the process of deciding what rules will be allocated. Is this kind of co-leadership model for PIE it allowed, or because the call used singular, so PIE lead rather than PIE lead or co-lead, for instance?
I think you could have multiple co-leads. Yeah, if you have you're saying like that they would share the responsibility.
Yeah.
Essentially,
It's mostly because they may reach out to be different people just naturally, because if you have a local authority, they are probably more on the public health side. If this is more, NHS, it's probably more on the patient side. It's just a bit, they will cover different things. But of course, we can also appoint one as the lead. The other one will be the co-lead, which is actually below the lead. That is also fine. But I'm just trying to get a sense of if they are kind of more equal, can we call them co-leads, plural? So there's not a lead per se.
So I think you would be calling them co-leads. And just to, also because I see Angela's question in the chat, so they would be members of the public, so they would be a person from a public contributor who would be a PIE co-lead. And if you're saying that you have 2 members of the public, essentially, I don't see a problem with that. I think you should just, explain your reasoning in your application and why. And I'll just now give an opportunity for Lynn to ask her question. She has her hand up for a while.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Shujan.
Hi, thanks. So I've got a couple of questions as well, sorry. So we're a TRE and we've got some technology we want to develop further for Federation, and then we've got an example project we want to test on it. What should the PIE be on? Is it about the acceptability of the technology, or is it about the actual research project that's using the technology?
So you're asking, sorry, can you repeat the last bit again?
So what are we engaging the public on? Is it about the actual technology we want to develop and use, or is it about the research project that we're using as the exemplar of the technology?
I mean, I would say both of those would work. I think it all honestly comes down to you all, how you want to bring in the public, and at what stages in your projects you want the public to have input in. We're not in a position to tell you that, where the public opinion matters. And I see Fatima's comment in the chat too. It's you know, as a code lead, yes, I think they would have to attend all the, you know, the important project planning meetings and so on. But you're making the case to us, to the panelists, of how you will be bringing in, embedding public opinion into your project and how that feeds into your project as it goes. It's like it would be a continuous process. So it's up to you to really, you know, how we want to do that, you know.
Okay, thanks. So another quick question, if that's okay. So we are planning it's more a TRE-led rather than a researcher-led project. Is that acceptable, or do we have to find, I mean, we all have a researcher background and we are still involved in research projects, but do we need to bring in an actual external researcher, or is it okay for just to be a TRE-led project, basically?
Well, it is a research, you know, project. So, I mean, the way we're, you know, imagine, like, you know, it's not just what I mentioned is like, you know, what research will you be using, you know, embedding, or how will the researcher be showcased in this, their visibility and so on. I would say it's like kind of like a marriage, a partnership. I don't know, Rob, if you had any thoughts.
Again, you know, there's a case to be made here, Lynn. What we really want to do, I really like the rubric that's emerged from the Treevolution project of all this looking at possibility, acceptability, and usability of TREs. This call is really about the usability, the perspective of the ultimate end users who are the researchers. Can the new capabilities that, you know, we are putting together in the current phase of the Dare UK program, are they useful? Can you actually get some proper science done using these new federation or semi-automated checking or whatever it might be? So that's the perspective this call is looking to tap into. So provided you can make that case really clear in your application that here is a real piece of science that, you know, people want to do, can these new capabilities be useful in achieving that scientific goal? So it's the scientific goal for me, less so perhaps than who might be advancing that scientific goal, but attesting that ultimate end user perspective is the really important part of this call.
Okay, thank you.
And Michelle, I think you wanted to probably come in.
It was just on the PIE point, with regards to feedback on the technical side or feedback on the research. I think for us, we'd be quite interested in getting insight into the public's perception of the technical side, because it's about those capabilities and the implementation of that. So useful to get a sense as to how they feel about it, the governments, etc. But as Naj May said, most certainly the research side is important as well. So it is about kind of standard practice, how you normally would integrate PIE into your research projects, whether that's with the ethics panels or however way, but the technical feedback on the PIE from the PIE perspective would be very useful for us.
Okay, that's really helpful. Thanks.
I'll move on to Fatima Torabi.
Thanks very much, Najma, for the great overview. And so my question is that we actually want to use the solutions, the Trifix or Trevolution for our project. We do need something to link to TREs in our project. But I'm conscious some of those are going to be signed off around March time. So for me to really plan that and then make promises based on a solution that I have not yet had a sight of is a little bit tricky. So how would you suggest going about that?
Rob, can I defer to you? It is tricky in a nutshell.
Sure, thanks, nice. Thanks, Fatima. Yeah, we recognise that this is a challenge. I mean, the model I think that it's best to think about is the sort of the scientific team, if you like. They should regard themselves as customers in the room in an agile software development kind of sense. So they will be kicking the tires of capabilities which are maybe not yet fully formed, certainly not necessarily within the part of the TRE. And that's fine. That is absolutely fine. And in fact, I would hope that many groups will regard this as an opportunity as real end users to get in the room and say, look, this isn't going to work if we do it this way. We need to change the way this is developed and help shape the final outputs, if you will, of Treevolution. So if you view it from that direction as customers in the room who can genuinely, or potentially, let me say that, let me not commit on behalf of our partners, but can create tremendous feedback on why this may not be as useful as it could be. So again, that useful angle. So that's how I would approach that particular question. Yes, the capabilities may not be fully formed, but regard that as an opportunity to help shape their final form.
That's really helpful because, yeah, we don't want to replicate what Safer and Vista are doing. We want to actually use the tools, but that insight of consider we are an agile customer who will also be responsive to the needs is really helpful. Thank you very much.
Great. And then I see Grazelia.
Thanks. This is a question for Rob, just following up on what Fatima said. We have a project where we know we will challenge the current capabilities within Treevolution, and we know that there will be need for further development of the current capabilities, especially around SACRO and disclosure control. I was wondering what's the best way to de-risk the proposal. I know it's a $1 million question, but we know that we have workflows to be submitted as tests in the submission layer, and we know that they will work because we've tested that in data sets before. But they will challenge the Treevolution tech stack. How can we make sure that we will demonstrate that the value of the TREs to solve this huge medical problem, considering that within the agile loops, they might need a major refactoring of the current tech stack without blocking the project?
That's a good question. I'm not sure I've got a simple answer to that. I mean, a trite answer might be, if you run a compelling project and demonstrate the changes necessary, then, you know, that's an easy answer for me to make. It's not quite as agile as it would be perhaps if you had the Treevolution developers in the room. Not everybody, of course, can have the Treevolution developers in the room because, you know, there's one set of them and there are lots of you. I don't think I have a clear answer, but running a compelling project that says, look, we can demonstrate that this will need to change. And maybe this is an advantage of the tight timescales. You know, there would still be the chance for, you know, that to be taken on board, depending on how soon you can demonstrate that within a given project. All development that certainly Treevolution does is done in the open. So there are open forums, there are collaboration cafes. You can engage with the team through the existing mechanisms as your project progresses. And maybe I'd recommend that would be a way to think about planning in. You know, we are going to test this. We will want to engage through the collaboration mechanisms that our partners already have in place, and think about how you might do that. I think that's maybe my answer.
One question around that. We know that, for example, we will have to interact a lot with the SACRO team. Are we allowed to get a partner specifically from SACRO to allocate resources to do research in this area, or are we not allowed to have Treevolution core researchers in our bid?
No, that, if I'm honest, I can't remember what rules we have around the call. Maybe
The
nice.
Trevolution co-leads are not allowed. The leads of the Trevolution team are not allowed to be co-leads on the call.
But members of the Sacro team that are not in the core, we could bring, for example, a research software engineer that we can.
Exactly. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Got
And
it.
if you, I'll also point you that the collaboration cafe we had a few weeks ago, that was the idea is to, for the Trevolution leads were presenting their work just so you could know what to work with within each team. Michelle, did you have any other thoughts? Yeah, that was it.
Thank you.
Yeah, essentially it's anyone aside from Jim Smith, Phil Quinlan, Chris Cole, and Simon Thompson can be part of the project. So those and Stian, sorry. So there's 5 main leads. They can't be named, but anyone outside that can be.
Lovely. Thank you.
And just want to say thank you, Paul, who has been also putting comments in the chat, representing MRC UKRI. Okay, well, any other last minute questions?
I think in the chat, there's a question from Angela regarding the PIE lead. What's the definition of that?
Yes, so that is a public member. The PI lead is considered not just any team member that is just designated as a PIE lead. They have to be a member of the public. Michelle, did you have any other? So this, how do you find a PI lead? This is kind of part of the application process. We want to see that you are, engaged with the public. We did, in the presentation, we do have recommendations on working, and Pedri has done a lot of work around this. Let me see if I could quickly pull up that document, actually. But there's a whole document on how to embed the public in your project. Let me just see if I could pull that up. Michelle, go ahead.
I think it is also possible to have a designated PIE lead who is not a member of the public, but then their role is to take the lead on liaising with members of the public, bringing in members of the public and ensuring that their voices are heard and captured. So it could be a member of the existing team, but it's just a case of making sure there is someone who is very clearly their remit to lead on PIE and who will ensure that PIE is well embedded. So we must have true public voices captured, but it may not be that the lead is a true member of the public in terms of not being any linked to data in any way, but their role will then be to ensure that those voices are brought in.
Yeah. Let me just post that. And so and here's some, yeah, it's just bringing in. Okay, well, that is it. We can end this drop-in session, but as I mentioned, feel free to email me.
Can I
sorry.
interject? This is a drop-in session. That means, from my perspective as
Okay.
MRC, that people are free to join us right up until the last minute. So
That's true.
I intend to stay available until that time. But
Thanks so
if
much,
there's
Paul.
other attendees who don't need to be here, then feel free to drop off.
Thank you, Paul.
I shall go off camera, but I shall stay around as well.
Same.
Thank you, Shujin. And thanks, Paul, for attending.
Yeah, no problem. It's Deb's really wanted to be here, but she was away today. So brings me back to Dare UK. So I was involved right at the very beginning of this. So I was sort of dropped in and out of the program as we've gone through the years. So really pleased to sort of see the progress that's been made, and you know, it's been great to be involved in some of the competitions that have gone through to date and so on. So yeah, really exciting. And also there's obviously some external people still hanging on just in case there's some other interesting questions. But the TRE meeting in Leeds recently, I went there. I was part of that. That was a great meeting. Really exciting. I think we all missed Rob, actually. Rob's on mute, but he says he's still listening. There was certainly a rumble around the room. Where was Rob?
I was double booked, Paul. I was at the National Federated Compute Services and the DRI AAAI meetings in Edinburgh instead.
Right.
So I wasn't lazing about, you know.
I need to go back to my stem cell days in MRC and get you cloned.
Yeah.
Now there's
I
a
think I had
horrible
about
prospect.
I had about 4 or 5 people saying they only came because they thought Rob was going to be there. Where's Rob? Like, it was the first question people greeted me with. You're from there? Where's Rob? Very popular.
Get out of here! Oh dear.
But there's really good. I mean, the other thing I do, I can't. I think it's being recorded. I think it was recorded. Is it going to be shared? I think. Excuse me if I'm wrong. Yeah.
Well,
So there was a really good public involvement and engagement session that Anthony Shooter chaired as well, and I thought that was really interesting, and some interesting challenges in there around how we manage the societal debate. So it did remind me that question around where should we be involving members of the public and lay people, and I think lay's always interesting when you look at some of the members. We have a challenge around, is someone truly lay? But I think MRC is doing quite a lot of work in this space. So, you know, my general view is the public should be involved in everything. If they're going to be meaningfully part of a project, they need to know all of it. But anyway, yeah, I certainly encourage people to look at the recordings for some of those past events. There's lots to learn from in there.
Molly, go ahead.
Hiya. Can you hear me okay? I'm just going to take one ear
Yeah.
out actually because they're quite closed off, so I can't always hear myself talk. I've been following the Dare UK programme a little bit. So today I'm coming more from a researcher side. I know we've got an unmet need in our research to have TREs available. So when I saw the information about this, I was interested to know what you meant by partner with a TRE. Is that partnering with one that's already established? Do you have a list of kind of known TREs? Bearing in mind I'm coming from the sort of researcher side.
Sorry, I missed that last part.
So I think it was about, is there a list of TREs? So MRC generally avoids matchmaking. So the expectation is that if you're working in a field, you will probably know the TREs that you're interested in getting access to. You build those relationships with them. You would then use that in your research to stress test the Treevolution stack and see how that works. So that would be my answer. We're not a matchmaking organisation. You know, we expect you to know who it is that you're interested in working with and develop an application with those people. That would be my view on that.
Okay, that's really useful to know. Thank
There
you.
UK, feel free to interject and tell me if I get anything wrong, because as I said, I drop in and out of this program and I'm here representing a colleague, but so I can tell you standard policy. If there's a deviation, I apologise.
Go ahead, Michelle.
No, I think we definitely agree with that. The only thing we could point to is that we did have a portfolio of early adopters who already are implementing some of the tree evolution capabilities. But again, I would echo what Paul said in that it's a tight timescale. It's only 12 months, so ideally there should be an established relationship with them. But I can direct you. It's open. It's public information. It's on our website. There's about 10 TREs who already have implemented some of the capabilities for tree evolution. So just to bring that to your attention.
Can you pop the link for that into the chat, Michelle?
Yeah.
That'd be helpful to everybody, because I guess we can get to this chat afterwards.
That's really useful. Thank you. Thanks very much.
I mean, I guess there's elements of, you know, how do you stress test something where, you know, you've got early adopters who have had sight of these things, tried the tools, maybe had done some work on it. Actually having a TRE that's had no sight of that at all, but you have a relationship with, and to figure out, well, actually, how easy is it to actually bring that stack into an environment where you're starting from scratch? That could be a useful insight. Now, I think, you know, going back to some of the questions a little bit earlier, the panel would need to take a holistic view across a portfolio of opportunities, because I think this type of call tends to breed a number of opportunities that come with different degrees of maturity, different aspects of the solution. Some of them may want to do everything. Some people might want to focus in on a particular challenge they have. So we make our panels work really hard, which is why the selection of the panel members is quite critical to this. So they will take that bigger view of the opportunity. So it doesn't have to be. My experience of MRC calls is everybody wants to bid for the maximum amount of money they possibly can. And that's not always a good strategy. Sometimes actually having a really tight application, which is very focused and will deliver something valuable, is just as good.
There's a corollary to that. I agree with what Paul says. We have had questions from people saying, you know, could we, as a new TRE, if you like, apply to this call? And my answer has been, if you have a genuinely compelling science case, it's that user perspective we really do want to see. But if you can bring that to the table and say, look, if we established a TRE, if you like, to do this or things like this, would that fit the scope of the call? My answer is yes, it does, because then you could be testing maybe not the federation capabilities, but something like the Sartre specification or the Cater implementation of Sartre. You are trying to establish a new TRE using some of the capabilities from Treevolution to address a genuine science case. For me, that's definitely in scope of the call. And then you have to tell a compelling story to come into the panel.
Okay. Actually, that's quite useful to know, because it's written on the funding pool, you know, partner with a known TRE. It's just whether it is possible to have, like you said, with a compelling science case, the ability to sort of.
I hope we would, as Paul says, holistic is a good way to think of this. You know, that the panel will look at these things in the round and go, okay, you know, they're an aspiring TRE. Do they fit? Well, yeah, I think they do. The case here looks good, you know, and they are trying to, you know, not every Treevolution capability is, if you like, for mature TREs. Some of those are for new TREs, definitely.
Right, thanks.
The other thing to bear in mind with a lot of our calls is don't be frightened of doing things which are difficult. Ambition is really important here. We'll learn as much. We might arguably learn a lot more actually by people breaking the system, trying to do something that they think they can do, and actually finding that it falls over, because that's where Treevolution and the Socrates, Sartre teams, etc., will make a difference. So that previous question we had about working with Sacro, because they already know there's a problem, that to me is quite a valuable opportunity. That's something to learn, something to address. You know, so don't be frightened of doing difficult, ambitious things. Not everything has to succeed. I know that's the way of science in the UK. I know it's how you get publications. I know it's how we approach things in REF and the rest of it. But for strategic programs like this, we're looking for hard things to do. They're difficult, and we expect them to fail. Not entirely. Fail with learning that we can then address and push to success. I'll caveat that.
Again, that idea of a customer in the room, you are genuinely kicking the tires of this stuff, and you may find that they break, they fail. The use case that you have, the program can't, the capabilities can't address that at the moment. Great. For us, that's a fantastic result. It's like, all right, we have time still to steer this in a different direction. So that kind of learning is really valuable. As Paul says, there's a strategic view here. There absolutely is.
And that's not just MRC and Dare UK saying that. I've heard panel members look at an application and say that is going to crash, but let's learn something and fund it.
And I just want to highlight, because and I'll follow up with Angela and Fatima. I may have said that the PI lead, and I know Michelle corrected me, has to be a member of the public, but they're ideally, if they are a member of public that's, involved with recruitment and so on, running workshops, great, but they don't necessarily have to, they would be a PIE kind of professional. So I'll follow up with the two people who had specifically asked this question. I put it in the chat in hopes that they would see it.
There is another one actually, Nigel, that you could maybe add to this, because you've just prompted me for a thought in my mind at the time. There's a question in the chat. If I scroll back up, I think it was something along the lines of, do you expect PIE people to attend potential project meetings? To me, it's less about attending project meetings, it's more about engagement. So we had a challenge around, if you're trying to work with a community that might have mental health challenges, for example, they're the modes by which they might wish to engage with a project, which would be equally valuable, may mean that actually attending a project meeting with a bunch of scientists sitting around the table hashing out tech is maybe not the most productive way of doing that. So I think, to me, it's less about attendance, it's more about how do you meaningfully involve and engage with members of the public. So I think we should be open to different ways of doing it. Thanks, Joe. Yes.
Yeah.
So if we can make sure that's broadcast as well, I think that's valuable.
Yeah, very good point.
The phrase meaningful engagement was exactly what went through my head, Paul, there as well. And there could be, as you said, different mechanisms to achieve that.
Yeah.
Great. I'm going to see if I could, I know with the applicant webinar, I went through the chat and came up with kind of the usual, kind of gleaned out all the major questions. And if you go to that recap links that we had sent, within that, you'll see some of the questions that were asked. And we just kind of cleaned it up and put it out there so people are just aware. A lot of these kind of similar TRE questions, but so I'll take these same questions as well in the chat and put it in our recap. Okay, Angela, can I ask, what do Dare consider as a PIE professional? Can this be experience of working with public, experience in voluntary sector, or would they have a recent experience in a similar role? This is a hard one, because again, with our community groups, this is why I kind of got mixed up. They are actually members of the public. We don't have I wouldn't say we have a strict definition. Again, it's about kind of like making the case that you have someone who is engaging with the public during each step of the way. It's like always kind of this iterative feedback mechanism. And like Paul highlighted, it doesn't necessarily have to be at these like planning meetings, right? It has to be at the point of the project where it's useful. I don't know if anybody else has any.
So I had my hand up to comment on Angela's question. Yeah. I think my view is, for each of the cases you have down there, Angela, I think you could make a case for that being the reason they were the PI lead. I think those backgrounds, to me, you could build a compelling case out of any of them, would be my view. So it doesn't have to be someone who's done this precise thing before, but they have experience of bridging, that sometimes that chasm between the tech side and the public side, and ways to do that. And those backgrounds, yeah, I think you could build a case out of any of those. That's a little bit Weasley, I know, but you know what I mean there.
But I think that's true, Rob, because I think what's important is that they can, as you say, build that bridge and provide a voice, because it's not always easy when you're in some of these panels to actually project your voice into that environment. So there's people out there who may, they may not be academic PIE professionals who go around developing policy around it or that side of things, but actually for your project, they need to be someone who can actually bring the voice of the members of the public into that environment. And so, they may have a professional with a small p, but they may have an academic background in that role. They might equally be a lay member of the public who's actually done a lot of this type of work and is capable of bringing that to the forefront. As I said, I mean, a classic example of that to me was the day UK TRE meeting in Leeds with the public session led by a member of the public who did an excellent job. But so I think it's about who is that person, how can they do that, how can they make sure that the voice is heard, and how and that they have the confidence to actually say you need to listen, and if people aren't listening, to actually project that.
So it brings to mind an example from the Health Data Research UK conference last week, was it? So many things happening. There was a fantastic presentation on an aspect of PIE from a woman whose background was in youth work, and she was terrific. But that background was clearly helped her shape the public engagement aspect for the work she was talking about. So there's an example of a background that really can deliver the right person for this kind of role.
But that's an example, not exclusive. We've got a hand
absolutely,
up
absolutely,
yeah.
Paul, absolutely.
We've got a hand up from Carolyn.
Hello, hi, yeah. On that subject, then, could you? So I have pre-established connections, if you like, with UK CRC. I don't know if you've heard of UK CRC, the Clinical Research Collaboration, and as part of that, they have a PPI group that they often contact for input on things like, to do with all sorts of things, basically. And I used that group previously when I was doing some research into sustainability and clinical trials. So as part of that application, we said that group would be consulted, and we did it as like a second part of the project. So the first part was analysing some data and collecting some data and doing some research, and then the second part was getting the PPI involvement and engagement on what they thought about the results of what we'd found. So for this call, could you do something like that, where the PPI part was not a supplementary part, but something that came later? So for example, if I was to do this application now, in 10 days, I'm not going to have specific names and details of the PPI involvement. But what I could do is add UK CRC as an informal partner, and then later, at the appropriate time, have those connections in place. Do you think that could work?
So I would, where I've seen that sort of side of things before, is there would be a named individual who's responsible for convening that panel, and you would set out what that panel would look like. The other part of this I would encourage you to think about, and certainly MRC is encouraging people to think about this, is how do you know that the data you collected would answer the questions or concerns or issues or challenges that you may get from your public group later?
Sure.
So actually involving them in the design of the questionnaire or your data analysis or data collection beforehand could also be valuable. So there's a little bit of a missed opportunity in there, I would say, from my perspective. I'm not saying it's wrong.
Yeah, I can't remember the ins and outs of what we did.
Yeah. So we really encourage, we really encourage as much co-creation as you possibly can because they can ask questions which actually you've not thought about, and
definitely,
it's harder to go back and do something again than it is to sometimes sort of building an extra question at the beginning because someone said, well, what about that? So that would be my comment and my challenge to you. But you could actually say, you know, this is this person, you know, in a particular project, maybe someone who's done this work before, they're used to working with members of the public, they've got a panel of people that they can draw upon, albeit maybe working with another, you know, a lot of the NIHR applications, they've got public advisory panels, Dare UK as public advisory group, etc. There's lots of them now. So, you know, but it's knowing who it is who would take responsibility for that piece of work in the project, how they would do that, where it would fit in, how that voice would be heard.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
It gets harder if there's nobody at all. We will put in place a PIE lead, but we don't know who that's going to be.
Yeah,
that's a little bit too nebulous, maybe.
Yeah. No, I agree. That's why knowing of a group that could potentially fulfill that part is useful.
So if you're a connection to that group and you've worked with them before,
I have, closely,
that might make sense, and you can explain that relationship.
Yeah, it works. Thank you.
And
so having held everybody back we're now slightly over time, but carry on.
No, I was just going to say also, like when you're, you know, the two sections where you have the opportunity to write about the PIE, there's the main kind of project plan, but there's also you will be also looking at the costing. So if we see that you're just writing up, I'm doing this amazing PIE work, but then there's nothing costed for public contributors, how you're going to recruit members of the public, it's a bit of a red flag for us.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
So something to keep in mind. Okay, we are at overtime, and yeah, I will do my best to summarize all of this and put it in on the UK and on the Dare UK website. But hopefully those links within the UK RIMRC site will link up. We'll follow up on that.
I will investigate with the team about how we may do that, but not promising.
All right. Thank you all so much, and good luck with your applications.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks for staying behind. Cheers. Bye.
Bye-bye.